Welcome to the Backyard Professor Responds videos, where I shoot straight, talk honest, and get to the core issue. We witnessed a spectacle this weekend at General Conference from none other than the president of the Corporation of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saint, Prophet, Seer, and Revelator, Russell M. Nelson. And I will share the clip with you of what I wish to respond to, and then we are going to fact check this putative prophet, seer, and revelator. Let's share the screen.
With my grief. Later, I married my beloved wife, Wendy. She was a central part of my second example. When Wendy and I were on an assignment in a distant land, armed robbers put a gun to my head and pulled the trigger. But the gun didn't fire.
Now, this is an interesting situation because we do know this story. Him saying this at General Conference is to assure the faithful that miracles continue to happen in our day, especially to the head dog of the mighty multi-billion-dollar corporation of the church. But how accurate is this? It is not at all accurate. We've seen Bruce R. McConkie in his embellishment of the revelation when the blacks were given the priesthood. Spencer W. Kimball and everyone there present felt a nice warm feeling in their bosom. McConkie, talking to his family, embellished this beyond incredible and intimated and hinted that Jesus Christ himself showed up and talked, and there were angels in the room, etc., etc. With every telling, the story got bigger. We have also witnessed this same exact dishonest spectacle and method in church leadership with Paul H. Dunn and his miraculous baseball stories and war stories. And when he got caught, he got demoted. So what will the church do with this current storytelling, embellishing prophet, seer, and revelator? Let's take a look at the evidence. We always go to the evidence. And I've got to get to the evidence, which I am doing right now. No, not that one. Oh, for Pete's sake. No, I do not want that one. That's the one I want. No, I do not want that one. Hold on. I've got to stop the screen. Okay, there we go. Okay, now I will share the screen and I will get to this one. There we go. That's the one I want right there. Now I'm going to read this to you and let's see what happens. This site is mainly a repository of Mormon faith transition stories. Russell M. Nelson and his second wife, Wendy, were involved in an altercation in Mozambique, Africa, while visiting the mission home in 2009. We remember when this story broke. It was pretty spooky, but we were all assured the mission home is alarmingly robbed by assailants. When first reported, there's nothing involving criminal targeting church leaders. The only injuries mentioned in the reports were the mission president's wife having a broken arm and others having minor cuts and bruises. The couple continued their tour of the mission and held their scheduled meetings and even attended a stake conference meeting. Years later, the story is embellished and now involved attempted murder, a gun that miraculously wouldn't fire on President Nelson, attempted kidnapping of Sister Nelson, as well as angelic intervention. The initial story was an official church statement said, on Friday evening, they were having dinner together in the mission president's home when armed assailants entered the home and robbed them. We don't have complete information yet, but we understand that Sister Packard's arm was broken. In addition, she and others suffered some superficial injuries, mainly cuts and bruises. Elder and Sister Nelson will continue their assignment over the weekend as planned. News reports at the time reported on the incident as one would expect. The story comes out, and over the next few days, a couple more details are learned and shared as part of the story. These stories are reported in real news, but also in the church-owned news. Here are a few news stories with the main details holded. Armed assailants attacked and robbed a Latter-day Saint apostle, his wife, and two other couples in the African nation of Mozambique. Elder Russell M. Nelson and his wife Wendy were on a church assignment when it happened. According to the church spokesman, Scott Trotter, the wife of the mission president suffered a broken arm. She also had cuts and bruises. Sister Packard's arm was broken. In addition, she and others suffered some superficial injuries, and they will continue on as planned. And so those are the stories. Another that was in the Daily Herald, as Latter-day Saint apostle Elder Russell M. Nelson is shaking off a weekend attack and robbery by armed gunmen in Mozambique. He's telling missionaries this type of thing happens all over the world. During the attack, the mission president's wife suffered a broken arm and other cuts and bruises. So that's pretty much how he told it. It was an isolated armed robbery. Now, in a statement, the Packards said, these guys say the four armed gunmen overpowered our one guard. We were threatened verbally and physically. Cindy was roughed up and finally did get away to warn other guards and neighbors who came to our assistance, and she suffered a fracture in her left elbow, other bruises, and skinned knees. Elder Nelson was accosted as well, but is fine with minimal injury. The Packards also wrote that they feel Elder and Sister Nelson were not specifically targeted or that this was any act against the church. Some have speculated that our guards were involved. They were not. So, four armed assailants came in. Elder Nelson and his wife Wendy was there. The mission president was there with his wife. The mission president's wife got a broken arm. Others suffered superficial injuries. Elder and Sister Nelson were not specifically targeted. One report does mention Nelson received a kick to the face. The assailant stole the mission president's Rolex watch and cell phone, and the Nelsons will continue their assignment. Now the story grows, and it grows with Wendy telling her version of the story, where she says the wife is at a comforting peace that helped her remain calm during an attack by armed robbers last spring. She describes the experience Friday during a speech to 3,000 women at the time of the women's event in Salt Lake City. The four armed robbers had one intention, Sister Nelson said, to harm my husband and to take me hostage. Sister Nelson and her husband were on a church assignment. Cindy Packard, however, I'm just going to skip to the bolded part, suffered a broken arm during the attack. Others in the group suffered some superficial injuries. Sister Nelson said the attempted robbery and abduction was a sobering experience that confirms that life is a spook alley, but she said she takes comfort in the scripture that advises the righteous to fear not what man can do. Her account of the attack helped illustrate several points. She said the first of the four armed men didn't barge into the home, but casually entered almost unnoticed. exactly like the adversary does. Notice how she's bringing in a moral component here. Unbeknownst to others inside eating dinner, the intruders overcame the unarmed guard outside the mission home, she said. They then watched Elder Nelson and the others through the windows of the mission home, waiting for the right time to attack. The adversary knows your whereabouts, Sister Nelson said. The robbers didn't barge in, they just sauntered right on in, exactly like the adversary. It struck me as well that we, therefore, as women, need to be hyper-vigilant about what's coming into our home on the internet, the computer, and the TV. Oh my, what an addition and an embellishment and an added moral component to this, Sister Wendy. We're not done yet. The tale gets even taller now. President Nelson further embellishes the talk he published in a book 2015 called Accomplishing the Impossible: What God Does, What We Can Do. This is fascinating. In this retelling, we learned that the assailants announced their purpose when coming in. They are there to kidnap Wendy and kill then Elder Nelson. This aligns with the addition Wendy shared at Time Out for Women that the assailants' purpose was to do them harm, but this does not at all match what the mission president, who was president, or the official reports at the time, which specifically state the Nelsons were not targeted. Nelson stated in his book that they were maliciously molested, but then the assailants became totally foiled. He states for the first time that a gun to his head fails to fire in the incident. He continues by saying they then disappeared as quickly as they had appeared, and he credits angels for protecting them. His story doesn't mention the others present or the injuries they received. Sorry, Sister Packer, with Sister Nelson, you were hailed as a hero, but from President Nelson, your heroism and broken arm are replaced with a gun to his head in his version of the story. So here's the embellishment. On one occasion, we were attacked by armed men with malicious intent. They announced their purpose to kidnap her and to kill me. After they maliciously molested us in those evil objectives, they became totally foiled. A gun to my head failed to fire, and my wife was suddenly released from their hideous grasp. Then they disappeared as quickly as they had appeared. We were mercifully rescued from potential disaster. We know we were protected by angels round about us. This was retold in 2015. My wife Wendy and I are the beneficiaries of that promise. On one occasion, we were attacked by armed men with malicious intent, President Nelson says. They announced their purpose to kidnap her, to kill me. After they maliciously molested us with those evil objectives, they became totally foiled. A gun to my head failed to fire. My wife was suddenly released from their hideous grasp. Then they disappeared as quickly as they had appeared. That is the way President Nelson told the story. The hero of the story is Cindy Packard. She alerts everyone with her shouting, and she receives a broken arm. But later, when Nelson tells the story, she's completely ignored because he has to make it all about him. Nelson has a gun to his head, and the trigger is pulled, but the gun miraculously does not fire. They are saved by angels, though as the assailants leave as quickly as they arrive, and conveniently, there is no mention of the mission president or her or the wife. Just like Joseph Smith's first vision story, this tale grows considerably over time. We can see that dramatic storytelling and promoting faith are the purpose of these retellings rather than sharing an accurate account of what happened. If you want more embellished stories from President Nelson, do look up his plane crash incident or stay tuned and we'll write about it in one day. My point in bringing this up is to say, for the love of all that is holy, which we do now recognize you do not respect, Mormon church leaders, would you stop with the fake and the hokey, miraculous stories. They do not help you. They backfire. They destroy your credibility. They prove you are telestial material, hypocritically telling everyone else to think celestial. Joseph Smith in the Doctrine and Covenants received a revelation from Jesus Christ, the man you claim you talk to and get revelation from, Russell M. Nelson. And in that revelation, he said, all liars go to the telestial kingdom. Have you not read your own wonderful restoring prophet Joseph Smith's revelations, Russell M. Nelson? And if you have, do you not give a damn about their meaning or what they say? Because you obviously don't think they apply to you. You are the exception. You get to be the filthy, ungodly, horrifyingly filthy, rich Mormon prophet, seer, and revelator with well projected over $250 billion that you're sitting your lazy ass on and doing no good with. Entirely contrary to everything about the gospel of Jesus Christ as recorded in Scripture. You cannot serve God and mammon. Russell M. Nelson, do you not believe in the Scriptures? I'm convinced you don't. I'm convinced that with you bullshitting your way into miracles, proof of heavenly divine intervention with angels, etc., on a rather blasé, mundane break-in, that you are egotistically seeking your own self-aggrandizement so that the church will continue believing everything you say and literally worship you. And I will not. I do not. I cannot believe you. Because in the days of the internet, we have access to original stories. We have access to when you church leaders who are, not supposed to be perfect, but we would appreciate it if you would be realistic and a little more forthright with honest regurgitation of what is going on in your lives and in the life of the history of the church and the situations with the church, instead of trying to phonily try to make everything so miraculous and over the top majestic and holy. When in point of fact, I have this on very good authority. The father of all lies just happens to be Satan. And when he convinces people to lie, no, not saying the word Mormon, you blithering idiot. When the father of all lies convinces people to lie in Jesus Christ's name and in his own supposed general conference, then he does win a victory. Russell M. Nelson. Are you not aware of this scriptural teaching? How much of the scriptures are you actually reading and believing and practicing, Russell M. Nelson? Because I'm not seeing it. Please do show. Please do tell. Not with your mouth. I don't trust what you say. Show with your actions that you are a man of integrity and truth. Show with your actions that you are worthy to be the leader, not of a huge, mega, frickin' $100 billion corporation. Jesus doesn't need your money. He doesn't need tithing from the members either. Incidentally, Russell M. Nelson, he can pave the streets of heaven with gold. He's the creator. Are you not aware of that either? rather than grinding the face of the poor, rather than producing fake, false, phony, unconvincing miracle stories that come out to be shown and demonstrated with facts to be pure, unadulterated bullshit, perhaps you could potentially try to squeeze just a little bit of honesty into some of your dealings with your fellow man and do something that you yourself talk about, but hypocritically refuse to do. Think celestial, Russell.